Hello everyone, I'm Greg Otta with FedScoop TV, and I'm here at the Brocade Federal Forum today, and I'm talking with Jay Hatch, the VP of Federal Sales for Aruba Networks. Jay, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Jay, what changes are you seeing as far as IT growth and innovation in 2015?
That's a good question. Seems like all IT managers are dealing with the same issues. One, they have to reduce costs. Two, they have to be more secure. And three, they need to deal with the proliferation of mobility devices.
Okay.
And because of that, that's driven three primary areas of growth in the IT space. That's the cloud, no particular order cloud, security, and mobility. And the security and the mobility go hand in hand. And just look at the way people work now compared to 20 years ago.
Okay.
20 years ago, got dressed in the morning, you went to work. Work was the only place that had internet connection, did all your work, went home. 10 years ago, DSL shows up, you start doing a little bit of work at home, primarily at work. Maybe at lunchtime you take a look at your ESPN or something if your organization allows you to do that.
Right.
Today, everybody wants to work wherever, whenever. And as an IT manager, you have to deal with that and have to build a secure wireless infrastructure to handle the mobility requirements of your organization.
So with that network and those challenges, how do you see the federal government and agencies sort of adapting their network to this new stance?
So the federal government really, because of security issues, really hasn't been the earliest adopter of wireless and mobility, but that's changed dramatically in the last year or so.
Okay.
And they're starting to take a look at it. And what happened is companies like ours, Aruba Networks, and we have several competitors, Cisco is one, have spent the last 10 years making wireless more secure than wired with many features, AAA authentication, several other things. And now it's to the point where the wireless infrastructure is actually more secure. Case in point, we're accredited with the National Security Agency to run above top secret data on our infrastructure,
okay.
Strictly commercial infrastructure. So it's changed dramatically. Security is the key, and because we are now secure, we see the federal government deploying wireless and mobility at a much more rapid pace than they have 4 or 5 years ago. So
for the agencies that haven't embraced mobility yet, where can they look in industry to find the best practices in order to bring up the mobility stance or integrate the growing Internet of Things into their networks?
That's again, a good question. There's several tacks you can take. For example, our corporate headquarters has gone completely wireless.
Wow, okay.
And the goal there is to save money, don't need all the extra devices, and that's one way to do it. The other way is to look at the many different corporations around the country. Some of them are going, whole hog. Some of them are just kind of doing, a hybrid of both of them. So it's you just have to look around and see what the capabilities are. But longer term, one of the key things you need to do is save money. By implementing a wireless infrastructure or mobility infrastructure, you'll save, I've seen studies that say you'll save up to 70% of your wiring costs and your port costs.
So on top of the technology, what else do you think the federal government has to do, or where should they focus on sort of upgrading the way that they do things? Is it in the planning? Is it in the culture? Is it in the acquisition? I mean, how do we get to a point where we're breaking the status quo?
That's an interesting question, because one of the things that the government's going to have to deal with, that corporations are doing now, is what do you do about everybody's own devices? Do you let people put their personal devices in the infrastructure? The corporations are pretty much saying, these millennials that work for us, they're willing to buy their own. Why should we buy one?
Right.
But it saves us that money. And they're doing that pretty significantly. And we have devices, software packages that allow them to onboard those personal devices to authenticate them, to make sure they have they don't have any viruses, etc. The government's going to have to come up with a policy on how to deal with that. And I mean, longer term, that's the way industry's going. That's a bridge that the government has to figure out how
Right.
they're going to deal with it, because it's an important step in the process to get to where they need to go.
BYOD and the network that
Yeah.
it operates on, it's going to be a big challenge. So thanks for taking some time out
Sure.
to talk to us about this. Really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
For all of our YouTube videos, you can check out our YouTube channel. And for more information, you can check out FedScoop.com. I'm Greg Otto. Thanks for watching.